Ken, thank you very much for joining us today. How are things in Vancouver?
Great over here, Jimmy. We got sun today, so we're blessed.
The sun always shines in Vancouver.
No, never. Vancouver, right? Yeah, when it does, we're pretty blessed though. It is a nice winter sunny day here. Yeah.
Beautiful city. So, Tudor Gold is located in the Golden Triangle region of British Columbia. And before we hone in on Tudor Gold, I want to spend a few minutes on the Golden Triangle. For those who might not be familiar with it, it's a very prolific mining region. What's the significance of this area and why is it so rich in resources?
Well, it's one of the newer mining camps just by way of discovery. I mean, literally, the first prospectors landed at the turn of the 19th century. So it's been known to be basically high grade, small type deposits initially. But the thing that really handcuffed the Golden Triangle advancement was its access. Once one mine was found, Silverback Premier, that road got pushed up through the Alaskan side. Then came along the helicopter, the little, the 500, the Hughes 500 had a range of 1.2 hours. So you could just barely get to Calpine Lake. And there's a good one for you, or rather Tomakai Lake with Calpine Resources. There's a blast from the past where Murray Pesam came up and discovered the famous Eskay Creek deposit, which is probably one of the most famous stories in the planet. Geologically, it's a marvel. It's something that Skeena has picked up, and they're immediately to the west of us. So we're again blessed with being in the heart of the Golden Triangle, right next to KSM. They've got the world's largest undeveloped gold deposit in the planet as a public company. And we are directly north of my old stomping grounds at Brucejack Lake when I was part of the team with Silver Standard on that discovery that later spun out Pratium with Bob Quartermain.
So why don't we spend a minute on that because you were instrumental in the discovery of this Brucejack, which is one of Canada's largest producing gold mines right now. It's owned by Newmont. Tell us a little bit about that and how it was found.
Yeah, that was, it began as the Sulfurettes program in 2006, where we drilled off for 4 years the Snowfields deposit, now owned by Seabridge. But at Silver Standard, we realized we weren't getting credit for a silver company having a lot of gold resources. So the idea was spawned with Joe, Ken, and Bob to spin out Pratium. It was the plan as we discovered later at Brucejack Lake, the Valley of the Kings deposit. And I had the great pleasure of baptizing that deposit by naming it. We didn't name it until a year after its discovery. And that timeline is similar to history repeating itself to the Goldstorm story. Because here we are working on this big mammoth porphyry target, analog to say a snowfields, but on top of the snowfields, if you can imagine having a Valley of Kings. Well, in this case, Valley of Kings was well south of snowfields, but in this case, we have discovered yet another high grade event. And here is the story, the narrative that really gets juicy because the same rocks, the same metallogenic trend, the same structures. We're dealing with everything as a repeat sequence just to the north. So that's what stokes my fire every morning when I get up to put my boots on to look at how many more ounces we're going to bring in through that door. But it's an impressive odyssey. But yes, that entire story of Brucejack was to get value, and we did a great job from naming the deposit in 2010 to pouring Dory 7 years later, basically. It's got to be some sort of a record in NDP government, and give them credit because they were pro development for natural resources. Absolutely.
And I think the background on Brucejack is important because I think it lays the groundwork for Tudor Gold and why investors should care because it's only 8 kilometers away from Brucejack. So why did you get involved in Tudor Gold?
Yeah, that's a funny story. I was just coming off of after post Valley of the Kings. We had a bit of a consortium down in Peru, and I was thinking about coming up and thinking about retiring. I was in my mid 50s, early late 50s, and I thought, it's too early. And I sat down and had a meeting. Dino Cremonese, who was the president of our joint venture partner of Teuton, he introduced me to Walter Storm. And Walter had success at Osisko Lake, at Malartic, being one of the principals involved in the early years there. And he was an elderly gentleman. He was in his late 80s. And I was really impressed with Walter's stamina on this one and his commitment to discovery. He was really all in on this thing. And I told him I'd look at it for him, but I said that he had his team assembled, and I thought I'd be coming in being that kind of that fifth wheel, like not really fitting in. But I said I'll have a look at it and give you my thoughts. And but I think I'll just take it easy this year and just do maybe some reconnaissance for somebody. Dino immediately said, "Well, if you're available, I'll take you." And I said, "Sure, I'll work for you, Dino." So I worked for Teuton, but I had a good look at Treaty Creek, and I was absolutely blown away with what I'd seen. And I'd seen a hole that I'd seen about 95 times before at Snowfields. It was a knockoff. It was the Goldstorm deposit, and it was a hole they drilled at the very end of 2018 that came back with some pretty impressive numbers, over half a kilometer. It was something that you don't see every day. So it was branded then as being Copper Bell, which was incorrect, and I knew that. Copper Bell is a different domain to the Goldstorm deposit. It's a structurally composed deposit. However, this was definitely a knockoff to what I saw at Snowfields. So I was in, and I told Walter. He met with me that Christmas, and I'm sure a guy by the name of Barry Holmes made a bet and said that I bet you Ken Konkin will come work for Tudor, and it was true. I wound up being seduced by the rocks. So yeah, I started in 2019.
That's a great backstory. So you did mention the main or primary deposit is Goldstorm. It's made up of 4 domains, and it's a copper gold porphyry. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it in more detail?
Yeah, I can go on forever with the domains, but just to try and encapsulate it, every domain is like a body part to the overall body. They're unique in their way of characteristics. We've had several pivotal points, change of direction in the thinking of the exploration, how we perceived our plan to execute to get value on ground. And one of the biggest changes was early years, 2019, 2020. If we ever hit some copper, we knew that the copper would come in the model later, deeper. We weren't so interested in that as much as we were as becoming a gold company. But then we started looking at what happened with copper, and we thought, this isn't a bad thing. We should really concentrate on the copper domain. So the big domain that we've got is the largest one of the 4 domains. We have, as previously mentioned, Copper Bell. We've got the 300 horizon right on surface. It's a beautiful knockoff to Snowfields. The part that's the largest domain, the copper rich one, CS 600, copper stream 600 meters away from its upper contact of the 300 horizon. So very important. And finally, DS5, the deep stockwork. That was one we never saw coming. So all these 4 domains comprised, in a matter of 5 years of drilling, 3 resource estimates, we now sit at 27.9 million ounces of gold equivalent of a very respectable 1.19 grams gold, when the Detour mine is currently running 0.89 through the Grizzly. So very, very intriguing, given the fact when we started this odyssey, we began with the initial mineral estimate, reserve estimate, coming out at 0.74. So from a 0.74, we ramped up to about 3/4 of a gram to 1.2. So we're looking at 1.22 is the copper stream with 2.87 billion pounds of copper within that at 0.31% copper. So very respectful numbers, very respectful.
And as we mentioned, you're 8 kilometers away from Brucejack. Are there any similarities, or is there geological continuity between the 2 properties?
Yeah, the geological host rock, the system runs all the way up along the entire arc that we refer to. Is a contact between the Jurassic, Triassic, is very important. It's called the Khyber Red Line. But yes, the similarities are as I was mentioning, I alluded earlier to the timeline of discovery. We were after this large porphyry system, and we had great success to it. And as we were waning at the end, one thing that bothered me, and it was that we kept hitting this now and then ubiquitous high-grade gold. And high-grade gold has no real place in a internal part of a porphyry system. Typically, you see it as a tentacle on the outside. They're often eroded and they're long gone, but they're part of the model. But we had this episode at the end of 2023. We had 3 holes that were able to line up to make a plane, very similar to hitting SU12. When SU12 was hit, we didn't believe it at Brucejack when we actually drilled that hole, that discovery hole for the Valley of Kings. We didn't act on it because we just saw it as a one-off. Similarly, we'd hit earlier holes with native gold. We didn't act on it. We didn't tighten up the spacing past 150 meters because in the variogram, that's what we needed for drill indicator for a porphyry. When you're drilling with a hydrothermal system, you've got to choke up to no less than 50-meter step outs, right? You got to be 25 meters in. In fact, at Brucejack, we're down to 7-meter centers because the grades were higher and concentrated. But the reality was, what was this high-grade system doing way off to the north when it really, I thought, would be online with the Brucejack Lake Fault at the other end, where we have the perfect storm, which is another system, right? So there are four Goldstorm systems within the property. So I didn't predict the discovery of what we later called the Supercell complex. And this is what I think you're alluding to, that we did have great success last year with confirming the thesis, the thought, the hope, the dream that we had potentially another Brucejack Lake. But this one is superimposed on top of CS600. It penetrates through and is exposed beyond it. So it's a late stage event. Even the ages are lining up, we think. So yeah, and the structural complexity is very similar. One of the major differences is it's native gold, not electrum, as in Brucejack is electrum, we're native gold. We were so optimistic about what we saw. We ran ahead and grabbed a bunch of material for a metallurgical study, which we're underway with now. So watch for that press release coming up. So yeah, we're very, very bold about our decisions about going after this. So we like the idea of having a mine within a mine.
And what are your plans with or for Supercell going forward?
The Supercell complex has been drilled by at least 20 holes and pierce points through it. They've all come back with grades as good or better than what we see at Brucejack. They're averaging 8 grams. I think our average, someone had done a mock-up on it and they came back with a number like 11 grams. I call it 10. So 10 grams for 10 meters is what my target is. So anywhere between 4.5-meter widths to 25-meter widths of high grade, going as high as 20 grams gold. Very kind of in that nice range where you don't have a spike and nuggety effect. So it has a much more homogeneous distribution. So the size is about 800 meters by 400 meters, but the drill density isn't tight enough for me to be certain to put it in any kind of a PEA. So the idea is now is to go after this underground because the rate of return from being underground far outweighs trying to drill this thing from surface. Underground brings so many more positives to us. So the permit is now being, basically the application is going to go forward shortly. The work has been done by Fuse Engineering. We've had some work done by SRK Engineering to confirm the size and scope of how you would mine, say, the CS600 by way of block cave. So all of that development, ironically, is along the same ramp that we needed. So yes, we needed this ramp no matter what to develop CS600. But why not use it to drill off all of Supercell complex right in space? So get right down to it, make that decision after we drill it off with, say, 30,000 meters of drilling, just a number. We come up with a resource on that. And the most important part, if it's positive, we're right there to knock on the door to take our bulk tonnage test to know if it's going to be, say, for an example, picking another number out of the air, 1,500 ton a day mine. Brucejack, we started with 2,200 tons a day. We ramped that up to 3,900, 3,900, just under 4,000 tons at the end of the day. So conservatively, the engineers reverse engineered it, said, yeah, 15 is a good number because you're not going to get bottlenecked anywhere. It's a nice number to start using. If we have to push it, we can push it. So let's see what we get. I think this is a spectacular opportunity, especially the price we've been kicked in the teeth like most juniors in our sector. So we're down, but we're not out. We're definitely looking at coming back with a vengeance with this ramp that'll come down to basically validate everything we're saying with the Supercell complex.
And what's the timeline associated with this ramp?
Permits, that's a kind of a moving target depending on how busy the M Ministry of Mines are. We're in contact with them all the time. So it depends on how clean the first application gets put through with a few edits. Sometime, call it 6 months to 8 months is what they've told us, roughly, which is reasonable. It's not going to be drill. The ramp work will not start this year. We don't anticipate that, but definitely contracting for it, that sort of thing. Ongoing efforts with looking at other low-hanging fruit we can get that necessarily this underground workings will not get are on the table. So we're going to try and look at all of the various supercells we have within the overall nebula of the Goldstorm system. And we're talking about things like Route 66, the 300 North, other aspects that didn't really fit the domain models that are probably supercells or structurally controlled micro breccias. So all these things are going to be looked at that add to the bigger picture. If you can get 3 million, 4 million, 5 million ounces of high grade, that's where you start. That's where you begin with a lower capex beginning. Every company out there that's a 2 billion plus market cap company can then look at us as a partnership that are mining guys that can come in and say, guys, this is our wheelhouse. We do this. And we'll gladly look at that association going forward. Because I think that's what would take a smaller company to build to become a large company based on what they would get at the end of the day with the CS600. That's an absolute beast. It's huge. You've got to get on our presentation and look at the website because within the display we've got the CN Tower for scale for you, so you can get on have a look at that and just compare. If you've ever been up to the CN Tower and you are nowhere near the top of the CN Tower where you're at the observation deck on that thing, you've got another 100 more meters to go. So just from that point of 450 meters roughly is where you're sitting at. It's a 558 meter tower, but you're roughly sitting at around 4 something meters. When you're looking out, just think of it. That's 3 times more is what we've got in vertical on this thing. 3 times that. And it's like takes up all of downtown Toronto. It's incredible the size of this thing. It's a beast.
When we started this conversation, you were talking about one of the things that made the Golden Triangles successful is the infrastructure. And when it comes to any exploration company, the infrastructure is very important. Maybe you can just touch on that in relation to Tudor Gold.
Yeah, Tudor's got a great opportunity here because it's in an area that we had Pathfinder companies that came through Escape Creek and Calpine to becoming the big deposit from Barrick days. Homestake had it for a brief moment. They put in roads, infrastructure, deep sea port, shipper facilities, concentrate facilities. All of that exists. It's currently being used by Pretium to the south of us. Our location driving from Stewart is about an hour and a half. If you actually follow the speed limit, you can get there quicker, of course. But if you follow the speed limit, an hour and a half, and great road. And I'm told the government's going to amplify it, make it wider because they see the need for the amount of concentrate trucks coming down, putting more passing lanes in, widening the road, making it a lot more user-friendly for tourist times in the middle of the summer. But also the power line. North America's cheapest hydroelectric. The Northwest Transmission Line was built for galore. Seabridge is lined up to take power. It's underutilized. There's about a 30% discount to anybody grabbing it. So I think Skeena is in line to reap the rewards of the great infrastructure as well. So I expect them to be online next, along with, say, to the south of us, Artemis. That's out of the Golden Triangle, but along the Cordillera. Way to the south. That's a great project. The upper portion is anyways. I like it. But definitely Red Chris to the north from the Tahltan, and First Nations have been super with us from Skikalmaka to Tahltan, and also every time we have a conversation with Nishka, they're all positive and give us great support.
So Ken, as we wrap up, you've already touched on many points, but maybe you can just summarize some of the key takeaways for investors and why they should look at Tudor Gold.
Yeah, my job as directing this thing is we look at all the we'll call them alligators in the swamp, all the negative things and de-risking. So not only have we done a technically perfect job getting it to this level in such a short time, our discovery costs are $2 an ounce. Just on that, $2 Canadian an ounce is our discovery cost on all this. That's a phenomenal number. If you're in the $20 range, you're doing excellent. You're doing really well. So as a project that's nearly completed with a road connection, just 12, 13 kilometers to connect down straight of Valley Shot, power being right there. I think to capsulate it, it's the right geology, the right team, and the right time because the price is so depressed. This is the time to get in. Many people wait too long. They wait till the ramp is in. They wait until the drilling has been completed, and then the stock is at $2-3, and they've missed out. So I think that's one of the big takeaways. People recognize get in early, and this is an opportunity at this reset after COVID, after everything slid off the edge of the planet here. I think metal prices are strong. I think we have a strong copper component. This is going to be a very bright star for a lot of intermediate to senior mining companies to look at. It's on their dashboard now. It's on their desktop for sure. I think this will be an exciting year for the company going forward, and it is at the advanced levels of exploration with a very good, competent technical team at the helm. So we look forward to giving an update with more positive metallurgical, with more positive permitting, with more positive numbers coming in through the bit discovery. And keep in mind, this is one. The Goldstorm Nebula with the Supercell complex is one of 4. There's 3 others out there like it. 3 others. Just look at what KSM have. They have 5. There's 5. You could stuff half of the resources into what we've got at Goldstorm.
Well,
So we have a huge blue sky, huge uptick.
it sounds like you and your team are going to be very busy in the coming months, and I want to thank you for spending time with us today and sharing the Tudor Gold story. And I look forward to touching base with you at some point in the future.
Great. My pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you later.